VIMTV.com.
And we are VIMTV Velocities in Music. Guys, today, you guys have all been asking about it. We've been inundated with requests for this album, which I'm glad you guys are pumped up and passionate, especially for a band that's pretty cool. Done a lot for musical. I gotten a lot of people interested. The Strokes, their new album Angles, after a little bit of a hiatus from the Strokes.
5 years.
Yeah. Tom, want to give our peeps some background on the Strokes?
Well, I mean, I'm sure this is probably rehashed info for most of you out there, but you know, the Strokes is their fourth album. Their first album, Is This It, came out in early 2000s, I believe, like 2001. Huge. All of a sudden, it just hit. It was just, you know, lo-fi, New York kind of punk sounding album, and it just exploded. And then they came out with Room on Fire a couple of years later, which I think was a good album. A lot of people are really wishy-washy on it. I thought it carried along a lot of the good songwriting techniques and quirks that that characterized Is This It. First Impressions of Earth came out in 2006, and that was like big departure, you know, because they experimented with a lot more sounds. There's way more variety than there was on their first two records.
It's a bigger album too.
Oh, definitely, definitely. It's longer. The song, not only the whole album, but like the individual tracks on average, and there's also more of them. And then you get to Angles, which is like, I mean, it's condensed, it's short, it's 10 tracks.
This thing's 34 minutes
34 minutes long. So it feels like it moves along at the pace that Is This It did, but with none of the consistency at all. Whereas Is This It, there isn't a bad track on that album. You go through them, and while honestly I don't think any one track in particular on Is This It is amazing, I think what makes the record amazing is that they're able to have a consistent sound and just have all the tracks be good. Because that's a rare feat.
It's of high quality. Yeah,
exactly.
That's the mark of a good album.
Exactly. And here, while, yeah, the pacing's similar, there's no consistency. In fact, I think a lot of the songwriting here is pretty good. You know, for songwriting, I'd probably give this around like an 80, even mid-80s. Yeah, overall.
There's a couple hiccups in my opinion.
Just the bare bones like melodies and guitar riffs and stuff. But the way it's produced, the way it's presented, makes no sense. You start out with like Machu Picchu, which has this kind of 80s vibe, and then you go to Undercover of Darkness, which is like classic Strokes. Great track. I love that song. I think it's the shining moment of the album. And then you go to Two Kinds of Happiness, which is straight back into the 80s. And it's like, what happened? It's like Flock of Seagulls, then the Strokes, and then Flock of Seagulls again. And I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. Production and mastering 101. You produce and master an album to make it sound consistent. That's like the first thing that you learn if you're doing any of that.
And they did produce this by themselves, which might lead to some of the issues.
Which to me sounds like they produced every track individually, only thinking of the track, and then threw them together on an album. Because there's no flow. You're jumping styles all over the place. If this was produced like Room on Fire, I feel like it would have been way better. And now it wouldn't have been as experimental, true. It wouldn't have really pushed things forward too much. Because this is, you know, this is new. It's kind of a fresh sound, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's good. You know, you can't argue that this is good just because it's different, just because they're trying something different, because it's not necessarily in a good direction, I'd say.
And I feel like, you know, you nailed it with the production. I'm right there with you, but I'll even match that with the songwriting too. I feel like on a couple of the tracks, the songwriting's just not up to par. And the thing about the Strokes that you have to understand is these guys are excellent songwriters, and there's most of these tracks actually. There's just a couple that I have beef with, but most of these tracks are very well written. There's lots of, you know, very hooky guitar parts in there that just make this so incredibly catchy, which is part and parcel with all Strokes work. And that's what really made the Strokes such an endearing listen and probably assisted their blast of popularity back in the early 2000s. And while that's still here, those qualities are just inherent with these guys, they're still experimenting their sound. They're still pushing it here, and that's what you're seeing. They're trying different production effects and everything. But honestly, I mean, for 34 minutes to have such little content in rather simple songs. I mean, it's not like you're seeing a whole lot of really big strides that the Strokes are making in their songwriting. This is a lot of, like, some of the better tracks are very similar to their old stuff. You know?
Exactly. And I don't want to compare this directly with Is This It. The only reason I'm going to make the following comparison is because they happen to have already done this in their discography, but really I'm not basing what I'm going to give this on, you know, their previous work. But as I said, the reason that worked is because of consistency, because while it was short, it worked as an album listen, as a unit. This doesn't even work as an album, because by the time you get to the end of it, you've had so many different tastes of different things that no one idea is able to be fully fleshed out.
It's never able to gain focus.
Exactly. You know? Or momentum, really.
Or mood, or it never sets anything. It just feels scattered.
Because by the time you feel like maybe they're settling on something, they switch it up completely in every department.
Right.
So in that way, it just feels like a compilation.
Right.
You get to the end, and it's like, it's 34 minutes, and you just go, what even just happened?
Right.
I wasn't even able to attach to any one sound that just went on.
Yeah, and I've listened to this a bunch. I'm thinking I've listened to this like 10 times.
I'm probably around 7 or 8.
Yeah, and I mean, I love some of these songs. Under Cover of Darkness clearly to me is the standout, which I have a little problem with bands showing their best cards, you know, that early in the album.
Yeah, true.
That's just me. And I think that, you know, while this doesn't compare personally to anything in the Strokes' discography, and my point is, at least, you know, First Impressions of Earth was long enough that you could have, you know, some more content in there, you know, enough content that you could really get some out of. Probably wasn't the better album, but still, I mean, this is so short. There's just not, the material that's on here is iffy at times. I just feel like, you know, even in comparison to the Strokes' older albums, it doesn't stand up, but also to anything that's been released in 2011. I feel like this is still, you're going to find good songs on this, but there are better albums to listen to of all the 2011 albums we've seen so far. And you know, if this is your first introduction to the Strokes, I probably wouldn't recommend it at all. Needless to say, the Strokes are always going to have those 1 or 2 songs in their album that are just genius, because that's what they do. And I also want to make a point that I think that Strokes fans need to shut up. You guys are some of the worst fans I've ever heard of. You know, you talk crap about your band, about your favorite band, all the time, and it's really annoying to sit here. I mean, I've never been a Strokes fan. I mean, I've liked Strokes albums, but I mean, is this it? I was never, like, everyone's freaking out about that. I'm like, it's pretty good. I mean, it's good, but
I really like the Strokes.
Yeah.
I found this to be definitely a disappointment.
Right. So overall, what are you gonna give it?
I'm going to give it a 62.
Yeah,
I just can't just.
And I'm right there with you, 64. And I feel like that's even a little overrated. It's just that the Strokes are just capable of writing good songs, and some of these songs might show up on my list. They're that good. So
those are really, the few good tracks on here are really pulling a lot of the dead weight.
Yeah,
more than probably we should even give them credit for.
Right. And it's just there could be so much more. This could have been done better. That puts it in the 60s range for us. What do you guys think? I know a lot of you guys really like this album after you gave it a few spins. So leave us a comment. What did you think about it? What were your experiences? Are there tracks that you don't like? What are your favorite tracks? Because that's definitely something I think will stand out in this album. I think there'll be a lot of favorite tracks, and I think it'll often be the same. So please leave us a comment at www.velocitiesmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesmusic. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.